was Lane Kiffin. I know I mentioned the Lane Kiffin stuff on the podcast last week about the whole ultimatum stuff and how he has a certain time now with Ole Miss, meaning after this Egg Bowl against Mississippi State on Friday, the decision is supposed to be coming out with Lane Kiffin. Now, if you're asking me, as a Florida Gator through and through, alumni, going to be a double grad from Florida, I'm not being biased here. I am going to sit here with a straight face. I personally think Lane Kiffin is going to be taking the LSU job, and it doesn't have anything to do with his daughter and dating one of the LSU players, Whit Weeks, I'm pretty sure it is. It has nothing to do with that. I think Lane Kiffin thinks to himself, now I don't know him personally, I can't speak for him. However, this is just my opinion about the whole Lane Kiffin situation. I think he sits there and he goes, well, LSU, I think, is more of a chance to get to a national championship than Florida. That's how I think. Personally, I think Lane Kiffin is going to be taking the LSU job. Now, this is another thing I wanted to bring up about the Lane Kiffin situation. It drives me absolutely crazy in college football that this can go on, right? Lane Kiffin and other coaches, you should not be having any sort of conversations with any other teams until your season is officially over. It is embarrassing to Ole Miss that this is going on. Lane Kiffin, he's 100% leaving Ole Miss. Now, I know everyone's saying he's trolling. He loves to play these mind games. He's done this in the past. He loves to post all these social media things. Lane Kiffin is sitting there and going, oh, all the attention is on me right now. Oh, I love this. If Lane Kiffin really wanted to be at Ole Miss for the future, he would come out and say, I am 100% committed to this program. I am 100% committed to being here. He hasn't done that once. He has shot down every single question asked about LSU, Florida, another job. Are you staying at Ole Miss? Now, I know, I get it. It gets tiring. It's very taxing as a whole, but you are the head coach of Ole Miss. And I know he said we are competing for a national championship. Just come out and say, hey, I'm focused on Ole Miss for the rest of this season. We have a game against Mississippi State this weekend, and we have the playoffs that we're focused on, and maybe an SEC championship. They've never made one. I love playing that game with Ole Miss fans on social media. However, though, Lane Kiffin needs, if he was smart, he would take the LSU job. And everyone's saying, why would he leave Ole Miss? Why would he do that? Well, one, LSU has a lot more money in NIL. Two, I think it would be a home run hire because they have more of a chance of getting to the national championship, and with their recruiting and with their NIL and the NFL pipeline that they have compared to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin has done a great job at Ole Miss, 100%. You can't sit here and say otherwise. I mean, they are a nobody without him, to be honest with you. Nobody even thought they were going to be in the position that they are this year with Trinidad Chambers, Kawan Lacey, and that offense. They're second, I think, in the SEC in points per game. Lane Kiffin's an offensive mastermind. Now, everyone's also going to say, why should anyone want Lane Kiffin? He's got baggage. He's never won anything. Well, he's a young offensive mind. He's been in the SEC. He knows what it takes to win. And if there's any blueprint there for you, look what he did with FAU and look what he's doing with Ole Miss now. Now, this part about Lane Kiffin. Florida's chips are all in on Lane Kiffin. It's going to be about if he wants to go there. I did see a thing last month saying that he would love to be like Spurrier. And people also, too, I said this on the podcast last week, and we clipped this on social media. Why wouldn't you want to coach for the Florida Gators? Everyone's like, Florida's a dumpster fire. They're a has-been team. They have 3 national championships. They won one in 96, 06 and 07. This entire time, they have 3 national championships, and they've won Heisman's. Oh, that was the past. That was the BCS. That was Tebow. That was Urban Meyer. Well, if any coach wants to live up to that, they would come to Florida. Florida's got a ton of money in NIL. Billy Napier can recruit his tail off. And 3, I researched this yesterday. People tend to forget Florida is one of the biggest states and biggest college football states in the United States. So why wouldn't you want to go to Florida? Ole Miss doesn't have the recruiting like Florida. They don't have the pool to choose from like the Gators do. LSU, Louisiana is a huge football state. You've seen it. It's been out there, right? So people saying, oh, Florida's not a good program. They are 100% a great program. Every coach wants to coach for the Gators. It's not even being biased. They are literally one of the best college football programs of all time. It's not like we're sitting here saying, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, or it's like Mississippi State or Vanderbilt. No, it's the Florida Gators. the amount of history they have is absolutely insane. And they're still on the map in college football. Yes, they've had a bad season this year. They either finished 4-8 or they finished 3-9. But they knocked Ole Miss out of the playoffs last year. They knocked LSU out last year. The Florida Gators are not far from contending for a playoff spot next year. They have the pieces, they have the resources. They're just missing the coach. I don't want to harp too much on the Gators, but that's just how I feel. And the last point I'll make about Lane Kiffin, if Lane Kiffin decides this Saturday and says, I'm out of Ole Miss, I appreciate everything you guys have done for me, Ole Miss should say to him, you have no business coaching this team in the playoffs. Sorry, you backed out on us. You have no business being a part of this organization for the rest of the way. And maybe he walks away with his hands clean and says, that's fine. I've done everything I can for this program, even though obviously they're competing for a national championship. But it would be an embarrassment. It would be a disrespect to the Ole Miss program if Lane Kiffin were to coach in the playoffs. Why? He doesn't want to be there. For what point? And if Lane Kiffin if Lane Kiffin says, I want to leave Ole Miss this Saturday, if he says, I'm out, players are going to enter the transfer portal. Players are going to not play in the playoff game. So I really feel bad for Ole Miss fans. I do. Obviously, as a Gator fan, I want Lane Kiffin. I don't think it's going to happen. They're going to have to probably go into the backpack and unzip it and see the other names, or go into the pick of the names out of a hat. But I think it's going to be LSU. But that's how I feel about the whole Lane Kiffin situation from what I've seen. And LSU supposedly offered him $98 million. It's not about the money for Lane Kiffin. It's never been about the money, according to him, which, because Ole Miss can offer him a bunch of money, Florida can offer him a bunch of money, LSU, another school can call. Who knows? But it's about what Lane Kiffin's heart desires, and everyone's going to be waiting. We're going to find out on Saturday. And that's where I'll leave it. I mean, there's really not much else to say. Once we know Saturday, then we'll know. Maybe he turns the corner and goes, no, I love Ole Miss. I've done a great job here. There's no point in me leaving. I'm still under contract. I'm making $9-10 million a year from them. Why go to LSU with their dumpster fire and the whole Brian Kelly situation? There's more pressure there to win a national championship. There's more pressure to win a national championship at Florida as well. So his heart could say, my heart's in Oxford. I want to stay here.